Silence is one of the most misunderstood behaviors in romantic relationships. Many men assume that when a woman becomes quiet, she must be hiding something or involved with someone else. However, psychology suggests that reality is far more complex. Silence alone is not evidence of infidelity. It can simply be a natural response to anger, emotional overwhelm, stress, or a desire to calm down before speaking. That said, there are situations where silence becomes part of a broader behavioral pattern that may reflect emotional withdrawal or an attempt to conceal something. For this reason, psychologists advise against judging a relationship based on a single behavior. Instead, they recommend looking at a combination of repeated changes that develop over time. First, when silence is simply an expression of anger. Research on emotion regulation shows that some people withdraw into silence when they feel angry or frustrated, not because they want to end the relationship, but because they fear saying something they may later regret. They choose temporary distance until their emotions settle. In these situations, the silence is temporary rather than permanent, and it does not fundamentally change the nature of the relationship. A woman may avoid talking for several hours or even a full day, yet she still cares about what is happening in your life. She does not consistently hide aspects of her life or deliberately distance herself from you. Once she has calmed down, she usually returns to the conversation and attempts to resolve the conflict. In other words, silence motivated by anger often serves to protect the relationship rather than escape from it. Second, when does silence become a sign worth paying attention to? On the other hand, studies on romantic relationships indicate that emotional or physical infidelity rarely reveals itself through a single behavior. Instead, it is often preceded by a series of changes in communication, emotional investment, and overall relationship dynamics. Silence becomes more concerning when it is accompanied by other consistent and noticeable changes. 1. Sudden emotional withdrawal. One of the earliest warning signs psychologists identify is a decline in emotional sharing. If a woman once openly shared her feelings and daily experiences, but suddenly becomes emotionally distant, speaks only when necessary, and consistently avoids emotional closeness, it may suggest that her emotional investment in the relationship has weakened. This does not necessarily indicate infidelity, but it may signal that the relationship is facing a deeper problem that deserves attention. 2. Unusual secrecy. Everyone has a right to personal privacy. However, if a woman who was once open and transparent suddenly becomes unusually secretive without any clear explanation, that behavioral shift may deserve attention. In psychology, the concern is not secrecy itself, but the sudden change from her normal behavior. It is the unexpected shift that may carry psychological significance. 3. Losing interest in your life. Love often reveals itself through curiosity and genuine interest. A woman who is emotionally invested typically asks about her partner's day, interests, struggles, and even small everyday experiences. If that curiosity gradually disappears and she no longer seems interested in your life or emotions, especially when combined with other warning signs, it may suggest that her emotional connection to the relationship has diminished. 4. Silent with you, open with everyone else. Another behavior worth noticing is when she consistently avoids communicating with you while appearing cheerful, talkative, and highly engaged with other people, or spending long periods communicating through her phone or social media. The issue is not her ability to communicate, it is her decision not to communicate with you specifically, which may reflect growing emotional distance. 5. Excessive defensiveness. Some psychological studies suggest that individuals who are hiding something significant may become unusually defensive when asked simple questions, interpreting them as accusations or attempts to control them. However, this behavior should never be viewed as definitive proof of deception. Defensiveness can also result from feeling unfairly distrusted or constantly questioned. Why might a woman become silent if she is hiding another relationship? Psychologists often explain this through the concept of cognitive dissonance, the psychological discomfort that occurs when a person's behavior conflicts with their values or self-image. If a woman is secretly involved with someone else, she may experience internal conflict that leads her to avoid conversations with her partner in order to escape lying or answering questions that could expose the truth. In this situation, silence becomes a strategy to reduce emotional tension rather than a direct admission of infidelity. However, it is important to emphasize that this is only one possible explanation, not a universal rule. What does psychological research say? Research in couples therapy consistently shows that the greatest threats to relationships are not infidelity alone, but persistent emotional withdrawal, poor communication, and the gradual loss of emotional closeness. At the same time, scientific evidence does not consider silence by itself to be proof of cheating. Silence can result from many different factors, including stress, anxiety, depression, emotional exhaustion, or feeling emotionally unsafe within the relationship. For this reason, psychologists strongly caution against making life-changing conclusions based on a single behavior. Human behavior is far too complex to be explained by one isolated action. A woman's silence does not automatically mean she is being unfaithful, just as anger does not always mean love has ended. What truly matters is the broader context, the consistency of behavioral changes, and the overall pattern of the relationship over time. If silence is accompanied by ongoing emotional withdrawal, unusual secrecy, loss of interest, and other consistent behavioral changes, it may indicate a genuine relationship problem that deserves calm, honest communication. On the other hand, if the silence is temporary and followed by renewed communication and a willingness to resolve the conflict, it is far more likely to reflect anger, emotional stress, or psychological pressure, not infidelity. Ultimately, healthy relationships are neither built on suspicion nor destroyed by a single sign. They're understood by observing the complete pattern of behavior over time, because the truth is revealed through consistent patterns, not isolated moments.